Every culture creates its own unique software. In that software, there are codes. In the American Christian culture, the software with all of its codes is that being gay is bad. It used to be having sex before marriage is bad. But as time changes, as time moves forward, the way the software is designed begins to change. Homosexuality was a big thing around the 1960s and 70s. And eventually we became okay with that scenario. Now you have another branch of sexual orientation and identity formation. And give it some 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We get used to anything, you know. But all that aside, Nietzsche was only 24 when he was offered a full-time professorship. That's a humongous deal. Nietzsche was also an introvert. Introverts are miserable little animals. They really, really are. It doesn't matter what you give to an introvert. You can give him 10 wives. You can give him millions of dollars. Introverts always feel lost from within. They're like Jesus Christ. Come on, man, just go to the synagogue. Just believe in Yahweh. What's wrong with that? Just play with your buddies out in the street. No. For some strange reason, I just feel like I need to go on this journey. Why? I just have to. So you have a few things happening. Nietzsche, big city that has stolen meaning and value and myths from people's lives. Nietzsche possibly being gay. Nietzsche wanting to get married, but coming to realize his best friend has, stolen. Nietzsche enjoyed Wagner's music, only to realize he doesn't really like Wagner anymore, so that goes away. He's also a loner, and that's what an introvert is. They're always alone, always. You have too much stress on the shoulders of one human being. And remember what we said about stress. You need power to overcome it. Nietzsche found his power. He wrote books. He wrote book after book after book until the age about maybe 30, 32, 33, when he got really, really sick. He became almost blind. And he basically died an insane man. Nietzsche is stupid. I'll tell you why. Nietzsche is as stupid as this class, as Jesus, as Moses, as all the sages and prophets and philosophers that we've ever had.
Could you please not talk about Christianity like that?
Yeah.
Because I'm Christian either.
Okay. Now, and I'll tell you why.
Hey, can I say something?
No. No.
Save it for the weekly question.
Language is nothing but a series of bumper stickers. But bumper stickers, like any bumper sticker out there, it has the power to inspire. You're married. I say to you, do you love? It's a simple question. Say, I'm married, I'm committed. I like my wife, yes, I love him. And then I say, do you love her with your soul? What do you mean? Are you passionate? Are you creative? No, I have kids, I pay rent, my wife and I cook together, go out together. Yes, but do you love her? I'm introducing into your psyche and ultimately your life a concept that doesn't make sense to you, and yet you're intrigued. Watch that movie, Fiddler on the Roof. It's an old Jewish guy who's trying to survive, and he has this beautiful song. What if I was a rich man? He turns to God and says, like Job, you You could have given me a mansion and you didn't. Why? You're God. Instead of, having only $10 in my savings, you could have put $1 million there. You're God. It wouldn't have done anything bad to you. You're God. One day his daughter comes to him and he looks at her and says, I have found a man for you. How old is she? 20. How old is the man he has found for her? 60. And he says, Dad, I'm not going to marry him. I've already been spoken for. Spoken for? Spoken for by who? There is this guy named Joshua. How old is he? 20. 20? I love him. Love? What is love? I love him. And he doesn't understand what love is. So he goes home and looks at his wife, let's call her Bertha, and says, Bertha, do you love me? Love. What a strange word. What is love? Well, do you love me? Like with your soul. I wash your underwear. I cook for you. I clean for you. Yeah, I love you. No, I don't mean like you wash my clothes and you cook for me. Do you love me? And she says, I don't understand what you mean. You have people who have lived well by simply following the letter of the law. Jesus comes forth and says what? Letter of the law is no good. Spirit of the law. Why? Because Jesus, like Nietzsche, is privileged, arrogant. He doesn't understand the sort of disruptions he's creating. What are you going to do when you go home? Ask your wife, do you love me? What do you expect her to say? And what do you expect from yourself? How can you love your wife with your soul and not the chores of physical life? You can't. And because of this tiny little piece of advertisement, you're going to look at your wife and you say, is there a workshop I can go to? Are there books out there to read? Are there teachers I can go see where I can learn how to love my wife through my soul? And so you go to some workshops, they give you some more bumper stickers, you come home, you try to apply, it doesn't work. And now you know, hello Alex, and you know what's going to happen? You're going to survive. You're going to compromise. You're going to resent. You're going to be angry day in and day out. Why? You want to love through your soul, but you can't. Whose fault is this? Socrates, Jesus, Moses, Muhammad. Nietzsche, like all the other existentialists, considers someone like, who's that idiot? Camus is an idiot too. Martin Heidegger, the fascist. He has this concept called, yes? Yeah. He's a bumper sticker man. He encourages you to reflect. Imagine you went home and you turned on your computer, and now the computer began to reflect. Why am I going to turn on for this guy? Why should I do what he asks? I'm going to think now. I want my own life. I don't want to do what Noah says. Now that's reflection. You think you'd prosper with that particular desktop? No. Thinking is good because you follow. Following is good. You want to know who you are as a Christian? You're a fallen angel. That should give you some comfort. You know how your life is going to be miserable. Unless, of course, you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. Now that's a great piece of bumper sticker. No? Now you know who you are.
Let's not forget I'm Christian.
You know?
Okay, that's
That's okay. Now,
yeah.
Now, one of the things you need to understand about power, I don't care about what Nietzsche said. I need you to go back in time, maybe 5, maybe 10 million years ago. Human beings come down. Is there a Costco? No. Is there a Safeway? No. Do we have buildings like this? No. Do you have clothes on your back? No. You come here, you're naked. What are you going to do with the freeze? Well, your body is going to scream. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to gather some leaves and make them into like a shirt or a pant. What are you going to do when you're hungry? What, you're going to be a vegetarian? You're going to be an animal rights activist? No, everything that comes your way, you will kill and you will eat. What are you going to do at night when you have all these huge animals around you where they're going to devour you? You're going to find a place of safety. This is before Jesus, this is before Moses, Muhammad, the Buddha, Hinduism, and all that. Your primary function in life is to figure out where you can go to protect your flesh, where you can go to stop the growling of your stomach, and to have a restful sleep. You're not going to sit and say, what's the meaning of my life? No, you don't have time for that. Your brain space is occupied by three things: food, shelter, clothing. There is no God. Power. Without it, you can't survive. And if you have any sensibilities about you, I don't like the sight of blood, you better overcome it, man. You need to kill animals to survive. That's the way it goes. Years pass, around maybe 3,000 years ago, where you say, you know what? Maybe I can tame a couple of dogs, I can tame a couple of goats, I can tame a couple of horses. It's strange because sometimes when it rains, things grow out of the earth. You begin to think a little bit, oh, I can use the weather, the seasons, and I can use the animals for my own benefit. Agriculture begins. You know how to invent a wheel. Instead of putting a huge thing on your shoulders, now you put them on this wheel and they'll just go on its own. And do you know what happens in an agriculture community? You're not going to be a nomad. You're not going to move around every 5 days. You know how to work the seasons, what to do during winter. You have saved crops. You no longer need to look for animals. They're right there in the fences you've created. For the first time, you as a human being have done something that no other human being before you has done. You are now having a very intimate relationship with your land. This is a land that's sacred to you. It's a place where your kids grew. It's a place where you met your wife. It's a place where your parents gave birth to you. It's a land that nourishes your inner and outer bodies. And should anyone disrespect your land, you will crush them. For the first time, we have permanent settlements. That's a great amount of power to have, man. Now, here's what you need to know. If you would spend 20 hours of your waking life thinking about food, shelter, and clothing, you have food, it's right there. You have shelter, it's right here. Now you only spend about an hour of your brain power to think about the basic needs. You have about 18 hours of free space in your tiny little head. What are you going to do? You better find some stuff to occupy your brain power, man. Otherwise, you're going to go crazy. So you know what you do? You become creative. Are we here accidentally? Is there a God out there? Does my life have meaning? Little by little, your thought become more abstract. It's not so much food. How should I eat my food? Should I rush to eat? Should I wash my hands? Should I use utensils? Should I say a prayer? None of those things existed before. But now that you have empty space, now that you're free, now you begin to think. You know why? You want meaning. And people had meaning. For 1,000 years, we call the Dark Ages. Jesus Christ gave people meaning. Not so much Jesus Christ, the church really, for the most part. After a good amount of twisting and changing the stories and teachings, now you have the Catholics, Okay? Their power is disrupted around the 15th century. Then you have capitalism. There is really no religion. It's just a shell. It's just a face. Just a mask. And when you remove the mask, there is nothing inside. And the point I'm trying to make, my young friend Samuel, is we are the sort of animals that have been looking for power from the moment we've landed on this planet, because without it, you can't survive. Will to power. Nietzsche and people like Nietzsche make you feel bad for the life that you live. And it may be true, I'm not saying it's not. But they burden you more. They say take classes, but take classes that are meaningful. And then you got to sit back and say, well, what is meaningful?
What do you mean?
I don't know if you like James Baldwin, but YouTube him. He will make you feel bad. Read Das Kapital. That book will make you feel crappy. Read the Gospels. And all these innovative ideas, they will make you feel really, really bad about the kind of human you've turned out to be. And you have to sit back and ask yourself, okay, if you're there to make me feel bad, give me some goddamn tools so I can feel good. You say education is bad. I say yes. Give me a class. If you say I should love and not like, give me the tools with which I can love, and that love can be eternal. Because if you're going to poison my thinking, if you're going to poison my thoughts and my soul, and in the end I got nothing, why walk into my life and mess it up? You're okay with going to the synagogue. Your life has value. You fear God. You don't want to leave your parents. Some douchebag comes in and says the Spirit of God. Where? What? And what's the price I got to pay for that? Leave your wife, leave your kids, leave your parents, come with me. Where? I don't know, I'm winging it. That's very, very, very cruel. And that is Nietzsche. That is Jean-Paul Sartre. Now, here's the kind of difficulty. There are some people who can read Nietzsche and who are internally as well as externally have the capacity to become close to Nietzsche's ideal. In other words, you read Nietzsche, you read Heidegger, you read Sartre, and all they're saying is really quite the same. Be the owner of your life. Be creative, as Marx would say, be a species self. You are made in the image of God, which means you are as creative as God is. Create! But that creation must ooze out of you. Some people can do that. I don't know how. Some people can. Which means the following. 50 people will read Nietzsche's book. Let's just say The Gay Science. Out of 50, 49 are inspired. 49 will major in philosophy. Out of the 49, 10 will get jobs teaching. 9 are awful. 1 is good. 30, they're flipping burgers at In-N-Out. Now the question is it worth destroying 30 or 48 lives so that one can prosper? And the answer is maybe. There is this great story. It comes from Akhavan al-Safa. Akhawan means brotherhood. Safa means purity in Arabic. There comes a time where all these animals go to God and say, can you please destroy human beings? They suck. Whatever they touch, they destroy. Just remove them from the earth. They kill animals for no reason. They chop trees for no reason. And they piss in the river for no reason. Just get rid of them. And one after another, God is slowly becoming convinced that what he created, in fact, what was poison to earth, he's about to just remove them completely. All of a sudden, two people run really fast to God. One's name was Noah, the other was Samuel. And they both happened to be in this class. And they turn to God and say, before you destroy us, can we just have a minute? God looks at the animals and says, is that okay? The animals say yes. And Noah and Samuel look at God and say, everything that the animals have said, everything that the trees have said, everything that the rivers have said, it's all right, human beings suck. But despite the awfulness of human beings, once in a while, you will find a Malcolm X. Once in a while, you will find a Jesus Christ and a Lao Tzu and a Muhammad. Do not judge human beings who are at the lowest level of the common denominator. Judge us for some of the great entities that we have created. And God looks at the animals and the rivers and the trees and says to them, or asks them, despite the crappiness of human beings, sometimes there comes a Jesus and a Moses and a Buddha and a Muhammad and a Malcolm. What do you guys think? Because if we destroy human beings, we'll also destroy the other aspect, the genius. And the animals and the rivers and the trees congregate, they get together and they say, yeah, let's keep them around. But only because we want to experience the genius of humanity, not the scumbags, not the followers, but the creators. And the truth is, there are not very many. And that's how it is. You have a lot of Christians, but you have one Jesus. Jesus was anointed. He was touched. He didn't assume. He didn't dream. He had real experiences. The others, they just follow. There was one Marx, but you have a lot of communists. There was one Muhammad, but lots of Muslims. Anyone else? Abel.
What is the essence of good and evil?
Essence of good and evil? Going back to what our friend had said, to some extent, good and evil, they're constructs, social constructs, cultural constructs. I'll give you a couple of examples. One, we've talked about in this class before. The other, maybe a little problematic and troubling, but I'll use it nevertheless. When you go to the Eskimo country, the Inuits, and because the climate is really, really harsh at times, they will leave their parents out in the snow to die. A mother of 4 or 5 kids who has to nurse her kids up to the age perhaps 6 or 7 sometimes, at a certain point you have no more milk in your breast. So what you do is you have 2 options. Either watch your kid scream or just leave them in the snow to die. And they leave their kid in the snow to die. And in their culture, the sort of narratives that they've created, the sort of software that they have, it's very acceptable. We don't go to a church and say, God, forgive me for having killed my parents. It doesn't exist. You have done the best for your father and for your community. I'll give you another example. Imagine me to be a woman, and I'm 18. And like any other 18-year-old, I've been exposed to sex. I want to experiment. I want to explore. I want to taste. And not to mention, I'm extremely sexualized by the culture in which I live. I'm also a sensory animal. I go to a party, and I'm a devout Christian. I go to a party, and I see a nice-looking young man. I don't know why I'm attracted. You think what? I've done my research as to why I'm attracted? No, I'm attracted. Period. I walk to him. We have a conversation. I like him. He likes me. And he says, do you want to go home? I say, yes. He's built trust, and I trust him. I like him. We go home. We have sex, and it's my first time. And I don't know the consequences. And I miss my cycle. And I can't tell my mom because she's always high, and when she's not high, she's always angry. I can't tell my dad because he's just a violent man. I have no education. I have no money. I have no grandparents. I have nothing. And yet I have this child growing inside me. But there is something that I have, which is I have the ability to reflect. I look at my life and I look at myself and I say, Amira, look at your life. You got no dad, you got no mom, you got no parents. You got no grandparents. You got no one in your life. And you're a mess. You're a complete mess. Do you want the same thing for your child? If I'm really stupid, I'm going to say, yes, have the child. He'll turn out to be like Mahatma Gandhi. What are the chances? Almost zero. I'm very realistic. And I have a great amount of compassion for myself, but more importantly, I have a great compassion for this thing that lives inside me. And I ask myself, do I have the capacity to give him or her a good life? You know, like Job, man, when you suffer, you lose your faith. Unless you're extremely mature. And I gotta tell you, man, you don't find very many people who are mature. Look at Jesus in the Gospels. Garden of Gethsemane. Father, let this cup pass by me. It's too much. He loses his faith. On the cross, in the Gospel of Mark, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. My God, why have thou forsaken me? He loses his faith. You and I, 21st century, are you kidding? You can pretend, but like all people who pretend, you'll get caught. And you know what this young woman will do? She'll pick up the phone, me, Amira, I'll pick up the phone, and I will call Planned Parenthood. And I'll go there for a visit. And there is a nice young nurse who says to me, are you sure? Tell me your background. So, well, you know, my mom is an addict. My father is a violent alcoholic man. I got no money. Most often I sleep in my car. And she looks at me and she says, if you want to terminate the pregnancy, you can. You can also do adoption. Should you terminate the pregnancy, there'll always be a hole inside you. You always go back in time. And you always ask why, when your life has become somewhat privileged, when you have power. That will never go away. At times you will have regret. It's going to be intense, sometimes. But you could recover. Go to school, save money, buy a house, find a nice young man, get married, have a child, and give him or her twice the love. And I think, and I say, it's really the best option. Now, what happens is this. As a Catholic, I say all life is sacred. As a Catholic. But That Catholicism, the ideas, the philosophy, is abstract in my head. I don't even know what it means when I'm tested. All I know is I feel good walking around saying, I'm a Christian, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Muslim. The Dalai Lama. The Buddha was married. He walked away. The Dalai Lama would never know what it means to be married. He has no right to talk about detachment. The Buddha had a son, he walked away. The Dalai Lama never had a child, at least that we know of. The Dalai Lama never had parents. This is a man who's never tasted love. Sure, he can fake it, say, I love my people. I love all people. But he was never really tested. Can you walk away from your wife? Can you walk away from your child? Can you walk away from your parents, from your culture? The Dalai Lama, what does he do? Gets on a plane, paid by other people, goes on a stage, paid for other people, and talks. And what does he say? Well, life is suffering, but if you follow the Eight Noble Path, you'll be free. Really? And so what you realize is, yes, as a Catholic, which I am, I say, yes, abortion is bad, it's wrong, it's evil. But once touched, that which was once evil, now it becomes the most sacred thing I could do. Sometimes, you drive by and you see all these people in the street, and you have to ask yourself, don't they have parents? Don't they have siblings, aunts, uncles, friends? Are we really that isolated and alienated where no one really cares for us? Have we turned out to be a culture that treats everyone as if they're invisible? What is the use of being alive if that is going to be your life? There is also the flip side. And I'll tell you a story. It won't take too long, and then we'll go home. And it comes from a woman, Betty Eady, who wrote a book some years ago. It's called Embraced by the Light. She had a very simple surgery some years ago. And the surgery, I think, went wrong, and she was pronounced dead for a few seconds or a few minutes. In those few minutes where she had a near-death experience, which means that your rational faculty is put on pause. It's kind of like you think and you think and you think and you think, and then you have a moment of inspiration. It has nothing to do with your history. It has nothing to do with your faculty, your education. Things just ooze out of you, become a poet. She has an experience in that scenario where she sees a lawyer walking out of his office, going to Subway to get a sandwich. A homeless man looks at him and says, "Can you spare $1?" And he kind of just looks away, gets the Subway sandwich. On his way back, the same man is there. And he looks at this man, and all of a sudden he feels something that he didn't feel as he was walking out. And he says, "Why am I a lawyer? Instead of protecting corporations, why don't I change my profession into protecting the weak, the innocent?" And that's what he does. He walks away from a profession that paid him about $500,000 a year to about $75,000, all because of this homeless man. But what was interesting about what Betty Eady shares is the following. She finds herself in this paradise-like place. 12 men, bearded, robed. They pull this curtain, they open it, and they ask Betty, "What do you see down there?" And she says, "Oh, a drunkard, no good, a waste of life." And the curtains close, and Betty says, "I saw all these men laughing, smiling, being very happy." And then they open the blinds again, and they say, "Betty, what do you see now?" And she says, "I saw this light emanating oozing out of this drunkard. And she looks at them and says, he was just a drunkard in the first scene. In the second scene, he's got this divine light within him. What is the meaning? He says, this man that you consider to be a drunk chose the life of drunkenness for one reason, so that he could become a drunk, sit on that street at that particular time, run into this particular lawyer to change the life of this lawyer. So sometimes shit happens so that out of shit flower can grow. But is it something you want to do? I don't know. Is it a matter of luck? Probably. The truth is, all of us in life are profoundly insecure. We have to grasp on whatever that gives you an ounce of security. If it's terminating a pregnancy, that's where you are. If it's continuing with the pregnancy, that's where you are. At the end, how the consequences will unfold, no one knows. And I suppose in some ways we're all doing the best we can. Where it goes, it's in the dark. Have a nice weekend. We'll see you next week.